Tonight, you wake in a stone manor, where your future has already begun without asking your permission. The shutters tremble softly in the wind. The narrow window is still gray with the last of the night. Somewhere below your room, a servant lifts a pail, a dog shakes himself awake, and a kitchen fire begins the slow, rough breathing that means the household is rising. You are not waking to a love story. Not yet. Perhaps not ever in the way songs prefer. You are waking to a century that looks at a noble daughter and sees not only a child, not only a girl, but an opening. A possible alliance, a bridge between lands, a folded promise waiting to be carried from one family to another. You are perhaps 12, perhaps 13, old enough that people have started speaking around you in a language made of half-finished sentences and meaningful glances. Old enough for your mother to ask whether your sleeves are clean in a tone that really means whether the house itself appears disciplined. Old enough for your father to study boundaries on a map and imagine your name tied to another manor, another orchard, another chapel, another line of inheritance. In this world, a son may be trained for property. A daughter may become property's most delicate instrument. Still, the room is quiet for one more minute, and in that minute you belong only to yourself. The blanket is rough where it brushes your chin. The stool beside the bed holds a comb with worn teeth, a ribbon, and a scrap of unfinished embroidery hidden beneath a folded cloth, as if your own private interests need a little veil before the day begins. The floor is so cold that your feet flinch when they touch it. The air smells of wool, ash, and cedar wood. Stay here for a breath, then another. You are only listening. You are only drifting into a slower world where family ambition comes wrapped in linen, prayer, and good manners. You dress by habit, shift first, then gown, then belt. Your fingers are clumsy with cold and sleep. You draw the comb through your hair and watch your own face appear in a little dim metal mirror propped against the wall. The face looking back is younger than the role waiting downstairs. That is the true beginning of the marriage market, perhaps. Not the contract, not the church, not even the first visit from an eligible family. It begins the moment a girl realizes that the self inside her and the self visible to others are no longer exactly the same thing. Downstairs, the manor has already arranged itself into usefulness. A maid shakes crumbs into the yard. A boy runs past with 2 jugs and nearly crashes into a hound who has decided the whole lower hall belongs to him. The cook is wrestling dough with stern, religious intensity. Hens chatter in the courtyard as though gossip began with them. Your mother glances up from the table and inspects you in one sweep, from the condition of your hem to the angle of your shoulders. She says only that you are to keep your hands clean and be ready to help serve later. She says it lightly, but that is how women in houses like this often carry the heaviest meanings. They disguise prophecy as instruction. You know what it means. A guest is expected, not the husband, not the proposal. Nothing so blunt. A guest first, an uncle, a steward, a relative with polished boots and polite eyes. Someone who will sit by the fire and drink your father's wine while pretending to admire the tapestries and really taking measure of the household. The rushes on the floor, the number of candles, the quality of the bread, the confidence in your father's voice, the steadiness of your mother's smile. And you, perhaps, if you happen to pass through the hall at the correct moment carrying something harmless and useful. This is one of the things later centuries flatten when they picture medieval marriage. They imagine only the altar, only the child bride, only the contract. But long before the formal proposal, there is display, training, positioning. the slow, quiet shaping of a daughter into something legible to other households. Manners are not decoration here. They are evidence. How you pour wine suggests how well you were raised. How you walk suggests discipline. How little you interrupt suggests peace, and peace, to a family considering alliance, can be more attractive than beauty. Beauty matters too, of course. No one admits this in holy language, but every older woman in the manor knows exactly how the world looks at a girl your age. Pale skin means you are not weathered. Good teeth mean health. A modest body means propriety, until the same mouths decide your hips look promising enough to bear sons. People praise the strange parts of you. The softness of your complexion, the neatness of your braid, the grace of your wrists. No one praises the things you would choose for yourself. The littles of philosophy you have memorized, the way you can mimic the cook's accent so perfectly that even the maids laugh. The fox you are stitching in secret because you like creatures that look as if they might bolt out of the frame. That fox matters. Keep it close. The story will need it later when the morning chores loosen their hold a little. Your mother calls you into the solar. There, on a chest that smells of cedar and old cloth, lies a quieter kind of truth. Folded linen, a girdle with metal thread, 2 silver spoons, a roll of dyed wool, a small leather pouch that clinks when your father touches it. This, though no one says the word harshly, is your dowry. Not simply a gift, not simply generosity. It is your portable value translated into things other people can count. Your mother lifts each object with reverence that is almost tenderness. This linen from Flanders, these spoons from your grandmother's side, this carved chest that will someday stand in another chamber. Your father adds the duller language of land, yields obligations. What may be included, what must not. What can be promised without weakening the house too much? Medieval dowries were rarely just sacks of coin. They might include cloth, coin, rights, livestock, parcels of land, a future claim, a chest, a bed, a maid, or a practical arrangement disguised as sentiment. A marriage portion could tell an entire economic story if one knew how to read it. You do not feel sold exactly. That word is too sharp and too simple. What you feel is translated, rendered into cloth, silver, acreage, usefulness. Your body does not disappear inside that translation, but it is no longer allowed to stand alone. It must be accompanied by proof. Your father, when he thinks you are not looking, runs his finger down a wax tablet where numbers have been pressed in with the blunt end of a stylus. He is not unkind. That is important. He is not bartering you away with indifference. He is doing what men of his rank and century believe fathers must do. He is trying to place you where the family line will hold, where your portion will not be wasted, where the estate will gain steadiness from your departure rather than lose it. It is loving in the shape available to him, which is why it feels so difficult to judge. Medieval duty often borrowed the clothing of care. Your mother understands the business more intimately. She was once the daughter at another chest, lifting another spoon, touching another fold of linen, while older people spoke of portions and prospects. She knows that a dowry is not only economics, it is reputation made visible. A well-packed chest says thrift, lineage, memory, discipline, womanly competence, all before the bride herself has spoken a word. The chest becomes a little traveling household, a promise that you were raised among women who could keep order and preserve worth. Sometimes she lets you handle the finer things, a girdle worked with thread that glints in candlelight, A linen coif folded so precisely that it seems almost too elegant for ordinary use. A small comb of polished bone. A napkin hemmed by a cousin who sews beautifully and speaks too much. Each object contains not only material value but female labor, female time, female instruction. Dowry is a language of cloth, but behind the cloth stand years of mothers, aunts, servants, and girls bent over work by poor light. And if the room begins to close around you, the orchard waits outside the little wall. You go there whenever you can. That is where the story lets you breathe. In spring, the apple trees release pale blossoms that drift over your sleeves and stay for a moment before falling. In colder weather, the branches etch themselves against the sky like dark script. Rosemary grows beside the garden path, sage too when you touch them. Your fingers come away with a scent cleaner and sharper than any room in the house. The orchard does not appraise you. It does not care whether your dowry is impressive. It does not care if a neighboring family finds your speech modest enough. It only keeps time in blossoms, fruit, frost, and waiting that makes it sacred in a way the household chapel cannot quite manage. There are mornings when you slip out before anyone can give you a task and stand among the trees while the mist still hangs low around the roots. The grass wets the hem of your gown. Your breath rises pale in front of you. For a few moments, the world feels untouched by barter. No one in the orchard asks how many spoons you bring, or whether your future children will secure the line, or whether your manners are steady enough to flatter another household. The branches hold their own patient silence, and in that silence you begin to understand how badly you will need places that do not interpret you. Sometimes you bring your embroidery, sometimes a scrap of bread, sometimes nothing at all. You sit on the low stone at the edge of the herb plot and watch the manor wake from a distance. Smoke thickens over the roof. A stable boy crosses the yard carrying tack. A maid shakes linens from an upper window. Men shout once, then return to the calmer speech of work. From out here, the house looks almost peaceful, not like a machine of lineage and expectation, only like a cluster of walls trying to keep out weather. That too is part of its truth. Even the institutions that confine people are built by hands trying to survive winter. You wonder sometimes whether peasant girls feel freer because no one is counting their marriage in acres and alliances, or whether they are only counted differently. The thought comes and goes like a bird landing and leaving. You do not know enough of their lives to envy them honestly. You only know that comfort is not freedom, and rank is not choice, and the orchard at least belongs briefly to whatever thoughts you can smuggle there. The rosemary bushes give off their sharp, clean smell whenever you brush them. It is a scent you will come to associate with every threshold in your life. Girlhood, courtship, bridal water, pregnancy broth, memory works that way. It attaches itself not to the grand speeches men remember, but to whatever was under the hand when the heart learned something new. You stand there often with your hands tucked into your sleeves, listening to birds move overhead and bees rise and fall among herbs, and for a few breaths, you become difficult to convert into value. No one can measure the silence in an orchard. No one can seal it in wax. If you are wise, you begin storing yourself there little by little, before the rest of the process begins asking too much. Back inside, names begin to float through conversations not meant to be overheard, and therefore inevitably overheard. A household to the east, a family to the south, a second son, good land, better, sheep, no scandal in recent memory, or not much scandal, which in medieval society is often the same thing. Rumor moves through the marriage market like weather. A respectable family with hidden debt, a promising boy with a taste for dice, a daughter whose aunt eloped with someone unsuitable. These details can change the direction of negotiations before anyone has uncorked the wine. Your aunt arrives carrying gossip like a basket that has grown too full to carry gracefully. She knows of a cousin who married badly and now lives near the coast in conditions so rustic that your mother mentions her name the way priests mention cautionary sins. Your grandmother, hearing all of this, merely shrugs and says she married at 15 and found her husband tolerable because he had teeth. The line makes you laugh, though later it returns to you with a different weight. Tolerable. In a world like this, tolerable may be a form of blessing. Around the manor, other signs begin appearing. The best table linen is shaken out and inspected for holes. The silver is rubbed more carefully. A servant is told to polish the candlesticks that are usually allowed to dull with honest neglect. Your younger brother is suddenly scrubbed and warned not to say anything embarrassing about the pig that got into the pantry last Michaelmas. Even the dogs seem to sense that the house has entered one of its strange periods of self-consciousness. Your tutor becomes sterner for 3 days, and then unexpectedly softer. She makes you recite prayers more slowly. She adjusts the angle at which you incline your head in greeting. She shows you how to hold a cup so that your wrist looks graceful and your fingers neither twitch nor splay. Then, when the lesson is over, she pauses and says you need not speak unless spoken to. But if spoken to, you must answer as though thoughtfulness comes to you as naturally as breath. It is one of the kindest and cruelest pieces of training you have yet received. Then one morning, your mother speaks a name aloud in your hearing, as though it has only just occurred to her. Though of course the name has already been discussed in at least 3 separate rooms. Rodri, second son of a nearby family, 16 perhaps. A little land near the mill, a household with prospects. You ask whether he is handsome, and your mother changes the subject so quickly that you almost pity her. That tells you more than an answer would have. In medieval matchmaking, beauty was useful, but never sovereign. Property, reputation, and alliance carried the heavier weight. Still, from that moment on, the future becomes less fog and more outline. A person now stands where before there had only been strategy. This changes the quality of your waiting. Before, marriage had been an arrangement without a face, something broad and medieval and inevitable as harvest or Lent. Now, it has a possible gate, a possible voice, a possible household smell. You begin, against your better judgment, to imagine details. A hand resting on a table, a cough in winter, boots by a door. Whether he walks quickly or drags one heel, whether his temper moves like fire or fog, there is something almost comical in how quickly abstract destiny becomes specific once a name attaches to it. The women around you know this too. That is why they begin their lessons in a different tone. Your aunt tells you, while shelling peas, that a husband's sisters matter nearly as much as the husband himself. Your mother reminds you that a man's household reveals his habits more truthfully than his speech. Your grandmother advises you to notice whether he thanks servants, because a boy who only performs kindness upward will age into a man who believes the world was built as a ladder for him alone. It is some of the best advice you receive, and it comes disguised as idle talk near the kitchen door. Training continues in the smaller gestures: how to receive a gift, how to decline a second cup of wine without seeming prudish, how to answer a foolish question in a way that lets the foolishness belong to the questioner, how to walk through the hall carrying fruit so that your posture says disciplined, but your pace says unforced. The marriage market does not require brilliance from girls as often as it requires controlled ease. You are being taught to move as though evaluation itself were natural weather. At night you lie under your blanket and imagine ridiculous things. That Rodri might be bald, that he might hate dogs, that he might speak only in hunting metaphors, that he might secretly be frightened of geese. Such thoughts are not romantic. They are your mind's attempt to humanize what has so far been a structure. If you cannot have choice, then at least let the unknown acquire edges soft enough to be pictured without dread. You find yourself imagining him against your will. Not romantically, not at first, more practically than that. Does he speak loudly? Does he smell of horses? Does he laugh at his own jokes? Does he look directly at people, or always a little past them? Is he pious from conviction, or habit, or fear? Is he kind to servants when no one important is watching? Such questions matter to you more than cheekbones, though of course you also wonder whether he is ugly in a way that would be hard to forgive every day for the rest of your life. The day of the first real visit arrives in a hush of unnecessary improvement. Better candles, better bread, a fire lit though the air does not need it. Your mother smooths your gown and allows you one small indulgence, a sprig of rosemary rubbed lightly at your wrists. It is not perfume, it is suggestion. It says cleanliness, cultivation, herbs, restraint. You are coached one final time in the hall. Do not mention pigs. Do not mention the cousin who ran away. Do not speak too quickly. Do not say anything that reveals you have a mind in active working order, unless the moment absolutely requires it. Rodri enters with a steward or some older male relation. He is taller than you expected and less composed. His cloak is too fine for mud, and the mud has won. He does not look up at your window when he first arrives, which you had not realized you were hoping he might. Instead, he dusts his boots with unnecessary seriousness. That helps. You had feared either polished arrogance or cheerful confidence. Awkwardness feels safer when you are introduced. You curtsy exactly as you were taught. Eyes lowered just long enough, back straight, hands still. The adults arrange themselves around wine and polite phrases, and then by custom or mercy you find yourself seated near enough to him that conversation becomes possible. Not free, of course, never free. The steward and your father are near. Your mother is nowhere and everywhere. A servant drifts at the edge of hearing. Even the tapestry behind you seems to watch. He clears his throat and asks whether you like music. It is such a timid question that you almost forgive the entire institution of arranged marriage for one brief second. You say, sometimes. He nods as if this is a perfectly reasonable and important answer. You both stare for a moment at a tapestry scene involving a saint and a dragon, which at least gives the illusion that someone in the room is experiencing higher drama than you are. A little later, under supervision in the garden, he notices the embroidery hoop you are carrying and asks what you are stitching. You show him the fox mid-leap. He smiles, genuinely this time, and says it looks as though it might spring out of the cloth at any moment. It is not poetry. It is not courtly brilliance. It is observation. And because it is observation, it reaches you where all the formal talk cannot. These are the moments that matter most in a story like this. Not because they overturn the system, they do not. Not because they prove romance. They do not have to. They matter because when a life is being shaped largely by others, the smallest unscripted recognition can feel immense. A boy sees a fox in thread and imagines movement. A girl hears him and thinks, perhaps, there is a person inside the arrangement. The visits continue. never often enough to feel natural and never rare enough to be forgotten. A supervised walk near the herb beds, a tray of sweet cake sent from his household, a weather conversation that circles clumsily toward personality and then back away again before anyone can accuse it of intimacy. He asks once whether you prefer winter or spring. You say spring because things return. He says winter because everything grows quieter. You are not sure what to make of that, only that the answer stays with you. Another time he brings a pair of buttons carved by a cousin. One is slightly chipped. He apologizes for the imperfection, and you tell him it only proves the buttons came from hands rather than from heaven. The line is bolder than you intended. He laughs, quickly, and with something like relief. It becomes easier after that to imagine he, too, feels himself being watched into stiffness. You are never alone together for long. A nursemaid lingers by a wall. A servant arranges baskets with improbable devotion. Your mother appears at windows with convenient tasks in hand. The garden itself seems enlisted into propriety, yet within these narrow spaces a form of conversation grows, crooked but real. He tells you he once fell from a tree trying to impress a girl, and failed at both the climbing and the impressing. You tell him your younger brother once tried to teach a goose to follow commands and succeeded only in being chased. Neither story will matter in any official record, and that is precisely why each matters so much to you. At night, after such visits, you replay the details with embarrassing concentration. The way he looked away before smiling, the fact that he noticed the fox rather than the quality of the cloth, the way his hand rested on the bench as if he did not know what else to do with it. You ask yourself whether you have spoken too little or too much, or in the wrong order, and then scold yourself for caring. The scolding never works. It is possible, you realize, for tenderness to begin inside a cage. That does not make the cage good. It only means human beings keep finding one another in whatever structures history builds around them. You talk very little, but little can still carry weight. He asks if you read. You hesitate just enough to remind yourself of caution. Then say, only when I am permitted. He gives the faintest huff of amusement, as though he recognizes both the answer and the carefulness inside it. He tells you, in a low voice, that he once tried to train a hawk and failed because the bird preferred his sister. It is not a noble confession, only a small ridiculous truth, and because it is ridiculous, it feels honest. A dog streaks across the path, chasing something invisible to everyone but itself. You both laugh, lightly and almost at the same moment. The sound surprises you more than him. Laughter is difficult in formal courtship because it immediately threatens to become real. When he leaves, the manor resumes its old noises. Bread is baked, chickens are plucked, water is carried. Yet the whole house seems to be listening for what will come next. When your father finally says they are interested, he does it as if noting the weather. Your mother speaks more softly. They will return with formal terms. The contract stage follows, and with it, the most sober heart of the marriage market. Medieval marriage was not sealed primarily by feeling but by agreement. Dowry terms, maintenance, land rights, inheritance provisions, conditions for widowhood, household obligations, where later generations imagine vows floating in candlelight. This century trusts clauses pressed into wax. The list of what you bring is read aloud and revised. Linen, silver spoons, coin, the chest, perhaps a parcel of land from your mother's portion. Rodri's family wants an amendment. The chest and the birds, too. You are mildly offended on behalf of the birds, though no one has invited your opinion on the matter. Your father mutters that it is a great deal for a second son. Then he remembers the manor near the mill and falls into thought. Land feeds men. Land clothes them. Land gives them standing enough to speak in church with confidence. The marriage market, stripped of poetry, is largely an effort to decide where land and lineage will meet. The negotiations take days, perhaps longer, because no family wishes to appear either greedy or foolish. Men speak of fields, but under the fields lie generations. Men speak of coin, but under the coin lie status, memory, and future leverage. The steward from Rodri's household is patient in the way people are patient when they know patience itself is a tactic. Your father grows short-tempered after supper, and then ashamed of it. Your mother keeps smoothing tablecloths and refolding linens as if neatness on the surface might bring clarity below. You sit nearby more often than anyone quite acknowledges. Not fully included, not fully excluded, that is the position of the bride in such moments. Central in consequence, peripheral in authority. Your future is being secured, and yet most of the language surrounding it belongs to other people. You become fluent in overheard fragments, jointure, maintenance, winter allowance, rights of widowhood. What sounds at first like legal murmur soon reveals itself as the skeleton that will hold, or fail to hold, the rest of your life. When the contract is finally read in full, it seems to stretch forever. Parchment, names, obligations, witnesses, legal formulations that treat your future as a sequence of manageable conditions. Then comes the moment when, in theory, your consent is requested. Daughter, do you accept? The room turns toward you. The possibility of refusal exists in form, in feeling. It is already surrounded by walls. You rise. You bow your head. You say that you accept. Your voice is quieter than you intended, but it holds. Wax receives the seal. The room exhales. A life moves onto its next track. Later, in the kitchen after the guests are gone, your mother places a small spiced cake in your hand. It is perhaps stolen from the better tray, perhaps saved on purpose, perhaps both. She says only that you did well. There are 100 emotions a house like this does not know how to entertain openly. So the cake speaks where language cannot. Sweetness, permission to sit. A little softness after being publicly agreed away. In the days that follow, the contract acquires a strange afterlife in your mind. A clause about widowhood suddenly becomes a picture of yourself older than you can currently imagine. A mention of maintenance becomes a room in another house where you might someday sit in winter, counting stores. A line about land boundaries turns into a muddy path near a mill you have never walked. Legal language is meant to be dry, but when it concerns your future, it soaks through everything. You hear your father and the steward revisiting small details after supper, as if agreement itself cannot be trusted until it has been repeated enough times to sound inevitable. Your mother asks practical questions the men overlook. Where will the chest be kept? Who will receive you on the day you arrive? Which servant comes with you, if any? Whether the household linen there is considered adequate. Men speak of structures. Women, more often, speak of conditions. One evening, you find your mother alone with the folded linens and ask whether she was frightened before her own marriage. She does not answer at first. Then she says she was more tired than frightened because fear, when everyone around you is busy, must often wait its turn. It is the nearest she has come to honesty in weeks, and because it is so small, you treasure it. Your father, for his part, grows kinder in indirect ways. He asks whether the new shoes pinch. He tells the cook not to oversalt your food. He does not look at you when he says these things. Men of his kind are rarely trained for emotional clarity, only for provision. But provision is not nothing. You begin to understand that people can love sincerely inside systems that are themselves unlovely. History becomes harder and sadder once you know that. That night, the manor feels both familiar and already half lost. The same floorboards, the same saints on the shelf, the same rushes underfoot. Yet every object has begun leaning toward departure. Even your bed feels less like a place and more like a room you are borrowing from your former self. You lie awake, listening to the wind nudge the shutters, and realize that marriage often begins in absence before it begins in presence. The absence of choice, the absence of certainty, the gradual absence of the unmarked future. The weeks of engagement are slow in the way wax is slow as it runs. Everything begins orienting itself around your departure and your transformation. Veils are laid out before you like cream, one so fine it trembles when lifted. Your mother asks which you prefer. But the question feels less like freedom than a lesson disguised as courtesy. Meals are adjusted, shoes are altered. A midwife glances at you with an intensity that makes your skin feel suddenly public. Older women discuss your body in half practical, half prophetic tones. Tall enough, hips suggesting promise, waist to be flattered, skin to be preserved. You begin to understand that marriage is not only a legal passage, but a visual one. The body must be made legible too. There are posture lessons now that arrive wrapped as ordinary advice. Sit straighter. Do not laugh so loudly. Keep your knees together. Lower your eyes, but not so much that you seem witless. Walk as though the ground were a courtesy being extended to you, not an enemy that may at any moment seize your hem. You practice all of this because practice is easier than argument, and because in houses like yours, obedience often becomes the safest form of temporary rebellion. If you perform what is asked cleanly enough, parts of yourself may be left alone in exchange. And still the orchard remains your refuge. You carry a small metal mirror there one morning and try to see yourself as they see you. Future wife, future mother, dowry made flesh. Yet inwardly, you are still the girl who once stole a honeycomb and blamed the dog. Still the girl who prefers a fox to a swan. Still the girl who is beginning to suspect that keeping one inward shape untouched may be the only quiet rebellion available to her. Rodri sends a small gift, a brooch shaped like a thistle, or perhaps carved buttons shaped like stars. Either way, it is modest, slightly imperfect, and therefore precious in a way silver never quite is. You tuck it into a private pouch, not into the household chest. The distinction matters. The chest belongs to the alliance. The pouch belongs to you. There are other visits too, not all of them memorable in themselves. Yet together they create the atmosphere of an engagement shaped by supervision and ritual. A walk in the garden under the watch of your nursemaid and a dog. A tray of sweetmeats shared awkwardly while your mothers discuss practicalities within perfect hearing. A little remark about the weather that would be meaningless in another context, but here must carry the work of real acquaintance. You discover that Rodri dislikes overcooked onions, and that he sometimes rubs his thumb against the seam of his sleeve when nervous. He learns that you can embroider quickly when no one speaks to you, and that you prefer the orchard to the great hall. Neither fact will appear in the contract. Both matter more than part of the contract does. At night you lie in bed and rehearse whole conversations you will never dare say aloud. Are you frightened? Are you kind? Do you believe wives should have thoughts? Have you ever looked at an orchard in spring and felt that the whole world was too beautiful to be managed by stewards? None of these questions belong to courtship in the formal sense, so they remain yours, tucked inward like the fox under its cloth. Then the women gather for the bridal bath. Warm water is carried into a side chamber, lavender, rosemary, sage, maybe a little vinegar. Steam blurs the edges of the room. You are undressed without shame because women in moments like this have no use for false modesty. They scrub your skin, wash your hair, braid it again, murmur little blessings, repeat practical advice, tuck charms into hems or sleeves. Some customs vary. Some are symbolic. Some probably changed from village to village and household to household. But emotionally, the scene is true. In a deeper way, this is the handoff between women. Not from girl to ideal bride, but from the women who have already endured the passage to the one about to enter it. They do not speak much about love. Love is uncertain, and certainty is what rituals are meant to imitate. Instead, they speak about winter, bread, in-laws, childbirth, silence, managing a servant who lies, keeping a husband warm enough to keep him sweet-tempered, preserving little stores of money or calm where the household cannot easily reach them. One aunt tells you how to warm a room before illness settles in it. A nursemaid tells you where to keep dried herbs. Your mother says very little, but when she untangles your hair, there is care in the slowness of her hands. You are beginning to understand that the female world beneath the legal world has its own archive, its own transmission, its own way of preparing a bride for something closer to endurance than romance. And for a moment, sitting in warm, scented water while older women move around you with practical gentleness, you feel less traded than carried. After the bath, they begin to lay out the rest of what will become your bridal self. The underlinen, the stockings, the belt your grandmother once wore, the veil your mother preserved and refolded and lifted from its chest more than once over the years to make sure moth or damp had not stolen it first. The trousseau is practical and symbolic at once, as so many female things are in this century. Every folded piece says household, continuity, future labor, expected fertility, decency, and also more quietly, endurance. The women tell stories while they work. Not all are pleasant. One speaks of a cousin whose mother-in-law counted eggs so fiercely that the bride began hiding cracked ones in her sleeves just to feel she possessed anything at all. Another recalls a woman who arrived at her husband's house with 3 chests and no sense of where the bedroom was, and how quickly the servants learned to ignore her. Then someone else counters with a story of a shy girl who became the strongest mistress of stores in the parish. The lessons are tucked into anecdotes the way herbs are tucked into hems. Your own chest is packed and repacked, linen at the bottom, garments layered above, little useful things slipped into corners, a comb, a knife, a small pouch for keeping needles, a ribbon saved for no practical reason except that it once belonged to a happier summer. You notice that the objects which comfort you most are rarely the grandest. A smooth bone button under your thumb, a scrap of cloth that smells like cedar, the fox embroidery folded where no one else will look for it. Before you sleep, your mother sits beside you and checks the braid she made with her own hands. She does not say that tomorrow you will be less hers in the eyes of the world. She does not say that part of motherhood in houses like this is raising a daughter carefully enough that another house will want her. She only tucks a loose strand behind your ear and tells you to rest while rest is still an order you can obey. After the bath, they dry you in linen, warmed near the hearth. Someone dusts your skin with powder that smells faintly floral and mostly like ground root. Someone else laughs at a joke too soft for you to catch. The room glows with candlelight and steam. It is one of the only points in this long process where your body belongs entirely among women who have no need to evaluate it. They wash because washing is needed. They bless because blessing steadies the hands. They joke because otherwise the room would be too full of what no one said. Your mother finally speaks while braiding your hair. She tells you not to be brave, but to notice things. Notice who keeps their word. Notice where the warmest room in the new house is. Notice which servant is trusted by everyone and why. Notice where keys are kept and how flour is stored and who eats first at table. A household reveals itself by habits before it reveals itself by declarations. It is the most useful counsel anyone has yet offered. Wedding morning comes before dawn. Candles, milk with honey, hair braided and wound with pins, and perhaps a little rosemary. The blue gown, the girdle marked with your family's emblem. Shoes narrow enough to remind you that symbolism is rarely made for comfort. You are dressed into significance downstairs. The hall has been transformed. Fresh rushes on the floor, flowers at the beams, a minstrel tuning strings with grave importance. Outside, the orchard stands pale beneath the early light. You are led to the church. The vows are spoken at the door, because marriage here is not only spiritual but social, not only private but communal. The threshold matters. The witnesses matter. The whole village, or near enough, is meant to understand that the union exists. The walk from Manor to church feels longer than the road is. The hem of your gown is heavy. The air is cool against your face where the veil does not fully cover it. People watch not cruelly, not even curiously, but with the open attention given to rituals everyone understands and no one can avoid. A little child stares at your shoes. An old woman crosses herself as you pass. Somewhere beyond the lane, a horse snorts in a field, entirely unimpressed by sacrament. The priest's Latin rises and falls over your tired mind. Your name, his name. The question, your answer, a ring, a blessing, holy water landing in your shoe at exactly the wrong moment. Nothing spectacular happens, which is precisely what makes the moment believable. A life can divide quietly. A girl can become a wife without thunder. Inside the church, candles lean in their holders and wax gathers in warm, slow ridges. You can smell wool, damp stone, old incense, and human anticipation. Rodri's hand shakes once, so slightly that only someone standing close would notice. You notice. It calms you more than any prayer in the room. The marriage is being made before God, before kin, before the village, but also before two young people who are only half prepared to inhabit what everyone else assumes is now complete. Then the feast, tables loaded with roast meats, bread, stewed fruits, cheese, sleeves ruined by fingers, cousins laughing too loudly, guests dancing with more conviction than skill. You sit at the center like a saint in a painted panel, half person and half symbol. Rodri sits beside you, quieter than most men in the room. He passes you bread, refills your cup. Once your hand brushes his and neither of you remarks on it. That may be the most intimate thing the feast permits. Hours stretch strangely at a medieval feast. Noise piles upon noise until it becomes a kind of weather. A minstrel repeats a melody because repetition is safer than invention. Children drift under benches. Old men fall into the same story 3 times and improve their own heroism with each telling. A cousin whose face has gone pink with wine insists on teaching everyone a dance no one wanted before he suggested it. You are expected to remain centered through all of this, to glow without sweating, to smile without seeming too eager, to eat just enough that no one thinks you delicate or greedy. At one point, a woman from Rodri's family leans in and compliments your calm. You almost laugh, because calm has nothing to do with it. What she is really praising is stamina under observation. Another guest remarks that your mother trained you well. That too is true in more ways than one. You have been trained for this table as surely as knights are trained for tournaments. Only your field is made of cups, glances, and not speaking when people wish to imagine you mild. When dancing begins in earnest, you are drawn into it whether you wish to be or not. The floor is a confusion of hems, boots, laughter, and uncertain rhythm. Rodri moves better than you expected, and smiles less than the others, which you appreciate. Once, during the turning of the dance, your veil slips, and he catches the edge of it before it falls. The gesture is practical, almost invisible, yet it steadies you more than the priest's blessing did. By the end of the evening, you are so tired that fear begins to blur at the edges. Fatigue can be merciful. It reduces even major transitions to the next necessary movement. Sit, stand, smile, bow, walk, enter the chamber, close the door, breathe. The meal stretches, meat is carved, cups are refilled. Someone tells a story 3 times because each retelling improves the teller's role in it. A cousin with too much confidence pulls you into a dance that is more stomping than grace. You nearly trip, and then do not. People cheer for entirely disproportionate reasons. The room smells of roast fat, herbs, spilled wine, beeswax, wet wool, and the unmistakable triumph of households congratulating themselves for surviving a major event without public humiliation. You are expected to smile, to eat a little, to appear neither overwhelmed nor too delighted, to receive jokes without encouraging rudeness, to radiate a gentle happiness that confirms everyone's faith in the arrangement. This is tiring work. It is also, in odd moments, almost pleasant. A child steals a fig from under a serving dish and hides beneath the table. An old aunt grows drowsy over her cup. Rodri, without looking directly at you, slides the least greasy piece of bread toward your hand. Such tiny mercies accumulate. By the time the room empties and the jokes grow knowing, you are almost too tired to be frightened. The chamber prepared for you is clean, or as clean as a good medieval chamber can be. Fresh linens, candlelight, a bowl of spiced wine, a hearth still holding warmth. You sit at the edge of the bed. Rodri stands nearby. The silence between you feels full of every instruction no one quite knew how to give. Then he notices your veil is crooked and reaches to straighten it. There, he says. Better. You laugh unexpectedly. He laughs because you did. And in that laugh, something loosens. Not the contract, not the expectations, not the future, but the immediate terror of being two strangers enclosed inside a ritual larger than either of you. He says after a while that he hated the dance. You admit that you feared stepping on his uncle's foot. He says that would have improved the evening. You laugh again, more quietly now, and the room becomes inhabitable. This is not romance as minstrels tell it. It is better for your purposes tonight. It is the first soft making of an alliance between two people who have spent months being handled as symbols. The morning after is almost absurdly ordinary. Birdsong, smoke, a goat in someone's herbs. You wake still in your own skin, and yet differently named by the world. Your mother checks on you without appearing to. A tray of warm cakes and berries is left. No one speaks more than necessary. In old households, silence can be a kind of mercy. Then married life begins, not as romance, but as management. The manor where you now live has its own rhythms, its own loyalties, its own drafts and quarrels and stores of grain. Your title, if you have one, arrives faster than authority does. People bow a little lower, but then immediately ask whether the butter churn should be replaced, whether the pantry allotments are fair, whether the ale has gone flat, whether the steward overreaches, whether the north wall chamber should be cleared, whether the orchard may be grazed by goats, which absolutely it may not. A young wife becomes useful quickly, or she becomes ornamental, and ornament is never safe in the long run. You begin to learn the household as if it were a difficult language. Which servant tells the truth too bluntly to ignore? Which one smiles before lying? How long bread needs on damp mornings? Where the cheese must not sit if the salt fish is nearby? Which cupboards collect mice? Which accounts the steward would prefer you not inspect too closely? You begin keeping notes when no one is watching. Candle usage, egg counts, the best time to air linen, which woman in the dairy can be trusted with keys. At first, the notebook feels like a childish comfort, a way of pretending control by reducing disorder to lines. Then it becomes genuinely useful. You discover that knowledge gathers quickest when written. The steward cannot quite dismiss a woman who remembers quantities better than he does. A household maid who lies about missing salt is much easier to contradict if yesterday's measure sits recorded beneath your hand. Small literacy becomes small authority. The servants notice sooner than the family does. One of the kitchen women begins coming to you first when stores run low. The laundress tells you which chest gathers damp in winter and should never again hold fine linen. The boy responsible for fetching kindling learns that you know exactly how much he spills on the path. You are not trying to become severe. You are trying to stop the house from slipping through your fingers. And in medieval households, the difference between severity and competence often depends only on who tells the story afterward. Your mother-in-law watches all of this with narrowed eyes. She critiques the arrangement of platters, the order of servants entering the hall, the way you seat guests of ambiguous rank. Yet once, when she thinks you are not listening, you hear her tell a neighbor that the pantry has been better kept since your arrival. It is almost a blessing. You pretend not to hear it because pretending not to hear is one of the older arts women pass down to one another. Rodri, for his part, begins deferring to you in small practical matters. Which room should be warmed first when guests arrive in sleet? Whether the steward's nephew ought to stay on another month? Which jars are to be opened before winter? None of these decisions sound grand. Yet households are made of exactly such decisions. Power in your new life comes not as a crown, but as 100 small permissions to arrange reality. The house itself teaches you which stair creaks loudest at dawn, which window leaks in rain, which hall is coldest after compline, where the dog prefers to sleep, which storeroom smells too sweet in summer, because fruit is hidden badly there. You learn how a manor breathes, not as a romantic ruin, but as a machine made of food, labor, patience, habit, and grievance. Your mother-in-law arrives like a season no one asked for. She smells of vinegar rather than lavender and carries with her the authority of a woman who has already endured everything now being asked of you. She inspects your stitching, corrects your posture, critiques your Latin, once you offer her a fig, and she says she prefers fortitude. You smile, and later eat 2 figs out of spite. She is exhausting. She is also, though you cannot yet say it aloud, part of your education. Every house stores its power in older women as much as in ledgers and locks. She teaches by disapproval, which is not the most generous method, yet it is a method. Do not leave the milk so near the hearth. Do not trust that maid with lamp oil. Do not let the steward purchase salt without checking the last account. Do not praise a roast before you have tasted the bottom. You begin to understand that what feels like criticism is sometimes only inheritance arriving in an unpleasant voice. Rodri helps in the way careful men help. He does not rescue. He redirects, he softens, he makes a joke when the air grows sharp. He takes blame lightly when his mother is looking for a target. He notices when your systems work and names that fact without ceremony. One evening over boiled turnips, he says, "The house runs more smoothly lately." It is not poetry, it is recognition. And by now you know the value of small recognitions. You also learn the little private habits of his body that no one would think to mention in a contract. He rubs at the scar on his hand when worried. He stares into the fire when deciding whether to speak or stay silent. He dislikes sour ale. He pretends not to care about the hounds more than he does. He asks questions in indirect ways, as if directness itself were a thing too heavy to lift indoors. None of this makes him extraordinary. That is precisely what makes him companionable. He is not a legend, he is a person. The months gather around you in details, hosting guests, pouring wine, keeping conversation buoyant while the roast is overdone, reviewing rights to sheep, orchard, fish, or whatever else the household insists is of great importance. You learn how to seem modest while making decisions. That may be the first real power available to many medieval wives. Influence that travels through competence rather than declaration. One afternoon, the steward brings you a ledger concerning eel rights and 2 adjacent ponds. You stare at the lines as if they had been written in stars. He explains them with grave seriousness. You nod as though women have always understood eels as instruments of estate stability. After he leaves, you laugh alone in the room, partly from fatigue and partly because adulthood so often arrives disguised as ridiculous responsibility. Then you begin to win small practical victories. The orchard is no longer used for goats. The saltfish is moved farther from the cheese. A maid who lies attractively but badly is given less room to improvise. The bread rises better because you change the timing. The steward resents your interference until he notices the stores last longer. He calls it prudence, rather than admitting that you were right. You accept the victory under its borrowed name. There are evenings when you sit by the hearth with sewing in your lap and feel the new house shifting, very slightly, around your presence, not because anyone has surrendered power to you openly, but because repetition itself has begun to memorize your choices. A bowl is kept here now because you prefer it there. The keys hang in a different place. The nursemaid comes to you first with a question instead of to your mother-in-law. The house is learning your shape, and you are learning its edges. Still, there are moments when you miss yourself with a force that surprises you. A letter arrives from a cousin in the north, and in it she writes of marriage, of childbirth, of turnips, of exhaustion, of the odd grief of missing the earlier self who once thought more about weather than about household stores and labor obligation. You take the letter to the orchard and read it there beneath the branches. Blossoms drift, or snow settles. The season is less important than the pause. You lean against a tree and feel, for a little while, that all medieval women must have had such moments, whether or not any record preserved them. Not rebellion exactly, not regret exactly, something quieter, a private inventory of what has been exchanged away and what remains. You think of the girl in the first room, the cold floor, the comb, the hidden fox. She is not gone exactly. She has simply been layered over with responsibility until she is harder to see in bad light. In the orchard, though, you can still feel her. She notices the same wind, the same scent of rosemary under your fingers, the same relief of standing where no one is measuring you. The orchard gives you no answer, only air. But air is not nothing. You return there more often during those months of inward uncertainty. sometimes with the cousin's letter, sometimes with nothing at all. You stand beneath the branches and imagine all the women whose names survive in contracts, but whose thoughts vanished with them. Brides, widows, mothers, girls promised too young, women who ran storerooms, bartered wool, softened hard husbands, buried children, kept saints' days, kept accounts, kept secrets. History preserves their portions more readily than their feelings. And yet feeling must have filled their days just as surely as flower dust and rushlight. You begin to think that the orchard is where those missing feelings gather. Not literally, perhaps, but in the way certain places seem capable of holding what no archive can. The air beneath apple branches has room for unrecorded grief and unrecorded contentment alike. Here, you can miss yourself without immediately being told gratitude is more appropriate. Here, you can admit that becoming useful has costs no priestly sermon cares to list. One afternoon, after reading the letter again, you tuck it into your sleeve and lie back for a moment against the grass despite the cold. Through the branches, the sky appears in broken shapes, pale and moving. You imagine the child you may one day hold, and wonder whether daughters come already carrying the outline of their futures in their bones, or whether the outline is laid over them later, like a veil pinned down by many hands. Then comes the stillness before everyone else notices it. You are late, you say nothing. Not because you do not understand the meaning, but because understanding it too quickly would make it harder to carry. There are no tests, only timing, instincts, signs, the memory of other women's stories, the way your own body shifts into a different register. You walk the orchard again, even in cold weather. You tell no one. Yet the household seems to smell change before words catch up with it. Rodri notices you are quieter. He asks whether the room is too warm, whether the food is too rich, whether the priest annoyed you again. You say only that you are thinking. He accepts the answer, because by now he has learned that not every silence needs prying open. Then one morning the certainty arrives through nausea, through a wave of weakness, through the unmistakable knowledge settling into your bones before it ever reaches the table as news. You sit on the edge of your bed and say the words into the room where no one can answer you yet. I think I am with child. The sentence feels older than you do. Once the household knows, everything changes and pretends not to. More broth, more cloth, more herbs, more attention disguised as practicality. Your mother-in-law begins sending rosemary with eerie precision. A nursemaid hums while folding linens that seem suddenly smaller than they did before. Bells may ring later. A steward may order more cloth. But the true announcement happens quietly, in how people begin carrying your future in the way they look at you. Pregnancy in the 14th century was blessing and danger braided tightly together. A wife was expected to bear children, preferably sons, and yet everyone also knew how uncertain birth could be. Women knew. Women carried stories of labor, loss, survival, fever, relief. A girl barely old enough to have been appraised as a bride now becomes visible in a new way, more valued and more vulnerable at once. You feel both things, pride, because you understand what the household hopes this means. Fear, because the body knows the risks more honestly than anyone's blessing does. Fatigue settles into your limbs. Your appetite changes. The cook begins sending apples with unnatural regularity as if fruit itself could guarantee safe delivery. A midwife visits more often. She presses your wrist, studies your face, asks practical questions in a voice that has learned how not to alarm young women by sounding alarmed itself. There is a gathering you attend where another woman has newly delivered. Cakes, laughter, exhaustion. The room rich with milk and heat and relief. The baby is placed in your arms for a moment. It weighs almost nothing and everything at once. You hold it and think not first of joy, but of scale. How can something so small rearrange an entire household? Then you remember that you once did. Rodri places a hand on yours one evening and says he hopes it is not too terrible. It is such an awkward sentence that you nearly love it for trying. You laugh softly and say, "Neither do I." The alliance between you deepens, not through courtly brilliance, but through mutual uncertainty. Pregnancy changes the tempo of the household, not dramatically at first, more like a bell beginning to ring somewhere far away, its sound arriving a little at a time. The cook watches what you finish and what you leave. The nursemaid appears with warmed cloths and herbal infusions. Your mother-in-law, who has critiqued everything from your prayer tone to your handling of figs, becomes almost gentler in her exacting way. Not gentle enough to be easy, only gentler enough to reveal that her hardness has always had fear folded inside it. Women begin offering advice in the same tone they use to discuss weather and bread. Do not lift that. Drink this. Walk when you can. Sleep on your left if the child sits restlessly. Tie this charm under your shift if it comforts you. They tell stories too, because women facing birth have always been surrounded by stories whether they want them or not. One speaks of an easy labor, as though such things happen in answer to decency. Another speaks of a child who arrived in silence and took half the mother's laughter with him when he left. The room never falls entirely quiet after such stories. It cannot. Your own body grows stranger by degrees. Food you once liked feels heavy. Fee ambushes you at odd hours. The fire seems too hot one evening and too low the next. You wake in the night because your dreams have become crowded with water, thresholds, and unnamed children. And yet, there is also a deeper, steadier knowledge forming. The body that had been examined for promise is now making promise visible. This does not erase your fear. It only braids fear with importance. One evening, while the wind worries the shutters and the house has nearly settled, Rodri sits beside you and asks whether anyone has told you what to expect. You laugh softly and say too many people have tried. He admits no one has told him much either, only that he is to pray. Wait, and try not to become useless. The answer is so honest that you rest your head for a moment against the back of the chair and close your eyes. Neither of you understands the path ahead, yet not understanding it together is somehow less lonely than facing certainty alone. Outside, the orchard continues its old work of blossoming or bearing or holding snow. Inside, the fox in your hands continues to leap, unfinished and alive. It is enough for tonight that not everything has yet landed. Some nights he reads aloud from a psalter or a chronicle and loses his place halfway through because he is tired. You pretend not to notice when he starts a line twice. Other nights you sit in companionable quiet while the fire lowers and the hounds snore near the hearth. Marriage, you are discovering, is often built less on grand feeling than on repeated tolerable evenings that slowly become dear. Outside, the orchard changes again. Snow settles over the branches and softens the paths, or blossoms return, thick and pale, depending on which season you prefer to keep in your memory. Indoors, you sit by the fire wrapped in wool and stitch the fox once more onto a scrap of cloth. Still leaping, still suspended, still not yet landed. The image comforts you because it tells the truth in a hidden way. You are no longer only the daughter from the opening. not yet entirely the mother others already imagine. You are between forms, moving while still, held in transition. Your body now belongs partly to itself, partly to the child, partly to the watching household, and partly to the future everyone imagines on your behalf. Yet there remain corners no one can enter. The pouch where you keep the small gift, the thought that comes to you in the orchard and belongs to no one else. The memory of your mother's hands in the bridal bath. The knowledge of exactly how the house sounds when everyone has gone to sleep and only the embers remain awake. Privacy survives in such details. That is where the story comes to rest, not at the contract, not at the wedding, not even at the first signs of pregnancy. Those are all thresholds, but the deeper subject is transformation. What it felt like to become legible to the marriage market, to be weighed by dowry, posture, rumor, and possibility, to pass through ritual into another household, to discover competence, to miss an earlier self, and still go on becoming, to carry inside you a life that will ask even more while some hidden inward core remains stubbornly yours. The house grows quiet around you now. The steward's steps fade down the hall. Somewhere in the kitchen, a loaf is left to rise beneath cloth. Somewhere a servant folds swaddling linen. Somewhere your husband turns in sleep and does not wake. The fire settles lower, beyond the shutters. The orchard keeps its old patient watch. It was there before the negotiations. It will remain after them. It knows nothing of contracts, only bloom, fruit, frost, and return. If there is comfort in this old world, and there is, it does not come from freedom. It comes from continuity, from women's hands in warm water, from rosemary on your wrists, from a boy who notices a fox in thread, from a crooked veil straightened without ceremony, from ledgers gradually made less frightening by use, from a pouch that keeps a small gift separate from the dowry chest, from the knowledge that even inside rigid systems, a private self can survive in fragments and symbols until it grows strong enough to inhabit the role without disappearing into it. The shutters settle, the candles lower. The manor stops asking anything of you for one blessed hour, and somewhere beyond the wall, the orchard keeps breathing in the dark.